Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin McFarlane. I'm Product Development Director at Concise. Concise have been in the events industry for over 20 years now, and we help organisations in all sectors to connect and interact with their stakeholders by harnessing mobile technologies. I'm here today to talk about audience engagement at those events and the ways we can foster and encourage that engagement. So probably the first thing we should do is define what we actually mean by audience engagement. If you try Googling the term, you'll get a dozen different definitions, but this is the one that resonates for me, and this is what I mean when I talk about engagement. So audience engagement is when attendees become participants in order to achieve the goals of both the organiser and the attendees. Now, it seems obvious when I say this, but it's surprising how sometimes a person is so focused on delivering their content and the message that they lose sight of the bigger picture. Yes, you may be presenting the information, but is it being absorbed, and are you getting the best value from your event? If delegates aren't engaged, then they don't learn, and if they don't learn, then the question is, what is the purpose of the event that you've put so much effort into organising? So, how can organisers increase audience engagement? At a typical event, a delegate may be asked to sit through 7 hours of presentations. During that time, they'll be presented with a lot of information, all of which they're expected to take in. Now, the challenge here is that according to multiple studies, the average person only maintains concentration for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, several things start to happen. Delegates stop taking information in, they start thinking about other things, their work, their other appointments and meetings, they start fidgeting, they start checking emails and so on. In fact, if you're watching this webcast on Peter's MedComms site, take a look at the length of all the other speaker videos. There's a good reason why they're all under 20 minutes long. So, what do? You can't have a 20-minute event to deliver your content, so we need to look at the structure of those events. There are 4 main areas of focus. There's planning, there's benefits, communication, and discussion. So what do I mean by those? Well, in the planning stage, an audience isn't engaged by fluke or by accident. It needs careful thought, and that thought needs to begin at the planning stage. The key for successful engagement is great speakers and great content. Now, in order to prepare that content, you need to understand your audience. So do research. Who do you want to attract to the event? What do you want to achieve with them? Now, once those objectives are defined, look at what the benefits are to the attendee. And this is an important point that often gets overlooked. The attendees need to see the benefit in attending and absorbing the information you're presenting at that event. And it's those benefits that you need to start by communicating to those delegates. And that communication doesn't begin once you start the event. It begins before the event. If you can engage the delegate prior to the event, you give yourself a much better chance of retaining that engagement when they arrive. So, share useful information and gather feedback in the run-up to the event, and do that over a series of updates. Don't just send one information pack out prior to your event. Try and drip feed it to encourage that longer term communication. So the way you can do that, there's email, there's microsites for the event, and particularly event apps. If those are available before the event, they're all an effective means to foster that engagement. So discussion is the big one, and this happens again before, during, and after the event. One of the keys to maintaining engagement is the difference between, as I said, the difference between attending an event and participating with the event. So what you need to do is encourage and enable delegates to participate. Now, there are lots of ways to do this. You can ask for their feedback, you can have live votes, you can let delegates select their own meetings during the event, select their own presentations to attend. You can encourage interaction through gamification of the content. So that's taking the concepts of what makes games attractive to people to play and keep trying to get a higher score. Take the science of that and try and apply it to your content, whether it's unlocking additional content, having leaderboards and so on. Give them the tools to network with each other, forums, live chat systems and so on. Enable Q&A sessions to be two-way. So when you take those four elements together, the planning and content for speakers, identifying the benefits for delegates, starting communication early and continuing it through the event and beyond, and finally giving delegates the tools to engage in the discussion and convert them into participants, then in that way you should see the engagement levels at your event increase. So what tools can we use to support this engagement? At a series of Peter's MedComms events back in March, we asked the attendees how many had seen or used a tablet or an app at an event. In the UK, 92.5% of people had seen or used a tablet, and 89.5% had used an event app. So although the percentages were lower in the States, we'd expect those numbers to increase year on year for the foreseeable future, catching up with the UK and Europe. But why is this? Now, it may seem a strange thing for somebody with my background to say, but I don't believe in using technology for the sake of it. Rather, I believe the technology must either provide something new and of value, and again that's an important point, that it must add value, or it needs to be an improvement on an existing technology. In the event space, technology is a great enabler for interaction and engagement. Now, I mentioned a number of mechanisms to encourage interaction and to foster engagement. In terms of supporting technology, voting systems are perhaps one of the most long-standing. Originally, these were dedicated hardware, so you'd have a little box with buttons on that you'd use at the event to vote. That functionality has now been absorbed into larger applications for event apps such as Chime, and that technology is available widespread now at events. But there are other technologies that you can use which also enable interaction and help facilitate engagement with your attendees. First of these would be something like this, so a live chat system similar to GChat or Instant Messenger. This gives a way for delegates to chat in real time during the event. You can also enable participants to select their own meetings and breakout sessions, and this gives them a real sense of control by enabling them to select what they feel is the most relevant content to them. Topic forums are another great way to encourage discussion. Discussions which can begin before your event, continue throughout the event, and go on after the event, giving an extended lifespan to the event, and also meaning that the content that you wanted covered has a greater lifespan and takes on a life of its own. Now, one of the big challenges around engagement is how do you know when it's happening and how do you quantify it? It's like marketing, that you know a certain percentage of it is working, but you're not quite sure which percentage. So although what I said earlier, attendees becoming participants is I think a really good general definition, the meaning and type of engagement at events will vary, so there's no catch-all measure that you can use to measure its effectiveness. So a key part of the planning right at the beginning is agreeing with the clients what success criteria are. And in order to measure against that, you need to gather feedback from the delegates. Again, if you're using an event app, you can do that live, and you can also capture information from the app itself about how it's being used, what people are looking at, how often they're looking at it. But I should say at this point that it's not like looking at the effectiveness of a website. There's a lot more to measuring engagement than just looking at the number of clicks. What you need to do is refer back to your success criteria, look at the data you've captured, analyze it, and see how you can correlate that to what you're trying to achieve. I'd just like to summarize with a few key points. So first of all, first thing is, when it comes to engagement, there's no other way to say it. Content is king. Great speakers, great content will always lead to good engagement. And that engagement starts at the planning stage. Once you've planned successfully, keep the communication flowing with delegates and communicate before, during and after the event. Technology isn't a silver bullet, unfortunately. However, what it is a great enabler for delegate participation. Once you've got that participation, measure it, review it after the event, and use all the feedback you have available to plan your next event. Thank you for your time this morning. If you'd like to discuss how we can help with audience engagement, please do feel free to get in touch. Contact details are there. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.